You have money in more than one kind of account. Maybe a 401k, a savings or brokerage account, and if you are lucky, a little in a Roth. And when the bills come, most people just pull from whichever one is easiest. That single habit, repeated for 20 years, can quietly hand tens of thousands of dollars to the IRS that you never needed to pay. Because the government taxes those three buckets in three completely different ways. And the order you empty them in changes your lifetime tax bill more than almost any investment choice you will ever make. Today we do the order, slowly, with the numbers on screen. Everything you have saved sits in one of three buckets, and the only thing that matters today is how each one is taxed when you take money out. Bucket 1 is taxable. Your regular savings and a brokerage account. You already paid tax on the money that went in, so when you withdraw, you only owe tax on the growth, and usually at the lower capital gains rate. Bucket 2 is tax-deferred. Your traditional 401k and traditional IRA. You never paid tax on this money, not on the way in, not on the growth. So every single dollar you pull out counts as ordinary income, taxed just like a paycheck. Bucket 3 is the Roth. You paid the tax up front, years ago, and in return, every dollar that comes out, including all the growth, is completely tax-free. 3 buckets. Taxed on the gains, taxed on everything, and taxed on nothing. Hold that picture, because the whole episode is just deciding which one to open first. Here is why this is not a small housekeeping question. Imagine 2 people, same savings, same spending, same everything. One pulls their money in a smart order. The other just grabs from whatever is convenient. Over a 30-year retirement, the gap between those 2 people is regularly tens of thousands of dollars in tax. Sometimes 6 figures. Same money, same lifestyle, different order. Nothing about the market did that. No clever fund, no hot stock. Just the sequence they emptied their accounts in. That is why this is one of the highest leverage decisions in all of retirement, and almost nobody plans it. So let us start with the classic rule of thumb, the one most advisors have repeated for decades. Spend your taxable account first, then your tax-deferred 401k and traditional IRA, then your Roth, last of all. The logic is simple, and it is not wrong. You want the accounts that grow tax-sheltered to keep growing as long as possible. The Roth is the most valuable dollar you own because it will never be taxed again, so you protect it and let it compound to the very end, ideally for your heirs. For a lot of people, most of the time, this default is a perfectly reasonable answer. If you remember nothing else, taxable first and Roth last will not ruin you. But it hides a trap, and the trap is expensive. Here is what the simple order quietly does to you. If you spend your taxable account first and leave the entire 401k untouched, that 401k does not sit still. It keeps growing. For 10 or 15 years it compounds, bigger and bigger, completely untaxed. And then you turn 73, and the government stops being patient. It forces you to start pulling money out whether you need it or not. They are called required minimum distributions, and the size is based on that now enormous balance. So the very account you politely left alone comes roaring back as a giant forced withdrawal, all taxed as ordinary income, landing on top of your Social Security, often shoving you into a higher bracket than you were ever in while working. That is the tax bomb. And following the simple order, taxable first, is exactly how you build it. Let us put a number on it so it stops being abstract. Say you retire at 63 with $800,000 in a traditional 401k and enough in savings to cover your first several years. You follow the classic order, and you do not touch the 401k at all. By 73, left alone, that $800,000 has grown to well over $1 million. Now the required withdrawals begin, and they are large, $40-something thousand in the first year, and climbing every year after. Stacked on your Social Security, that can push a couple who felt comfortably middle income straight into a higher bracket, and can drag more of their Social Security into being taxed at the same time. The bill arrives in your 70s, exactly when you thought the hard part was over. The money was always going to be taxed. The mistake was letting it all come due at once. So here is the version that actually saves money, and it is not complicated. Look at the low-income years, the stretch between when you retire and when required withdrawals and often Social Security kick in. In those years, your taxable income can be unusually low. That low bracket is empty space. An empty space in a low bracket is the most valuable thing in tax planning, so you deliberately fill it. Instead of leaving the 401k completely alone, you pull just enough out of it each year to fill up the 12% bracket, or the 22% bracket, whatever your ceiling is. You cover the rest of your spending from the taxable account. You are voluntarily paying a little tax now, at a low rate, to shrink the 401k before it becomes a forced withdrawal at a high rate later. You are draining the tax bomb one calm bucket at a time. Watch what that does. Take our retiree with the $800,000 traditional 401k. Under the do-nothing order, it grows untouched and detonates as big required withdrawals at 73. Under fill the bracket, every year from 63 to 73, they pull, say, 30 or 40,000 from the 401k on purpose, taxed at a low rate, and top up the rest of their spending from savings. By 73, the 401k is much smaller, so the required withdrawals are much smaller, and they never get thrown into that higher bracket. The lifetime tax difference between those two paths, same person, same spending, is regularly $30,000 to $60,000. That is a car, or a couple of very good years of travel, bought purely by changing the order. Before we leave the taxable account, there is a gift hiding in it that most people walk right past. When your income is low, and the gap years are exactly that, the tax rate on your long-term capital gains can be zero. Not low. Zero. If your total taxable income stays under a certain line, the gains you realize in your taxable brokerage account are taxed at nothing at all. So the quiet years do double duty. They are the years to fill your low ordinary income bracket from the 401k, and they are also the years to sell appreciated investments in your taxable account and pay no tax on the gain, then buy them right back at the new higher cost. You reset your future tax for free. Almost nobody uses this on purpose because it only exists in the low-income window, and the do-nothing order wastes that window entirely. Line it up with everything else. The quiet years before 73 are when all the good moves are available at once. You will hear the phrase Roth conversion, and it sounds like a separate, complicated strategy. It is not. It is the exact same move we just did, with one extra step. Filling the bracket means pulling money out of the tax-deferred bucket at a low rate. A Roth conversion means pulling that money out and moving it straight into your Roth instead of spending it. Same tax today, at the same low rate. The difference is that the money keeps growing, and now it grows in the bucket that is never taxed again. So if you have the low bracket room and you do not need all of it for spending, converting the extra is how you turn a tax-deferred dollar into a tax-free one. Fill the bracket for spending, convert the leftover room to Roth. One idea, two uses. Now the piece that makes people who ignore it very unhappy. How much of your Social Security gets taxed depends on the rest of your income. And every dollar you pull from the tax-deferred 401k counts as exactly that kind of income. So a big, careless 401k withdrawal does not just get taxed itself. It can reach over and drag more of your Social Security check into being taxable too. You get taxed twice by one clumsy move. This is why the withdrawal order and the Social Security timing are really the same problem. The best years to pull hard from the 401k or to do those Roth conversions are often the years before Social Security starts, when there is no benefit sitting there to be dragged into tax. Line the two decisions up on the same calendar. There are two situations where you should lean even harder into the tax-deferred bucket early, and the first is simply a large pre-tax balance. If most of your money is in a traditional 401k or IRA, a seven-figure balance say, the required withdrawal at 73 is going to be big no matter what. Waiting only makes the bomb larger. For you, the fill the bracket and Roth conversion years are not optional tidying. They are the main event. Start them the day you retire. Use every scrap of low bracket room each year, and treat shrinking that pre-tax balance before 73 as one of the central jobs of your early retirement. The second situation is about what you want to leave behind. The rules for inherited retirement accounts changed. In most cases now, when your children inherit a traditional IRA, they have to empty it within 10 years, and every dollar is taxed as their income, usually landing in their peak earning years at their highest rate. An inherited Roth, by contrast, also has to be emptied in 10 years, but every dollar comes out completely tax-free. So if leaving money to your kids matters to you, the order flips in a very clean way. Spend your own tax-deferred money, use it up in your lower brackets, and preserve the Roth to hand down. You pay the tax at your low rate instead of leaving your children to pay it at their high one. Let me make the whole thing concrete with two people. Frank and his sister Carol each retire at 63 with the same setup, about $700,000 in a traditional 401k, $200,000 in savings, and modest Social Security starting at 67. Frank follows the easy order. He lives off savings, lets the 401k grow, and does nothing until the government forces him at 73. His required withdrawals arrive large, stacked on his Social Security, and he spends his 70s in a higher bracket than he ever planned. Carol fills the bracket. From 63 to 73, she pulls a controlled amount from the 401k every year at a low rate, converts a little to Roth, and tops up from savings. Her 401k is far smaller by 73, her required withdrawals are gentle, and her Social Security is barely taxed. Same jobs, same savings, same spending. Carol keeps tens of thousands of dollars more, entirely because of the order. One honest caution before you go rearranging everything. This is not a reason to drain your 401k in a panic, and it is not personal tax advice. The right amount to pull each year depends on your actual bracket, your actual balances, and your state. Pull too much and you waste the low bracket you were trying to use. That is its own mistake. And the classic order, taxable first and Roth last, really is fine for a lot of people, especially if your balances are modest and required withdrawals were never going to push you anywhere painful. The fancier moves matter most when the pre-tax bucket is large. So treat today as the map, not the turn-by-turn. The turn-by-turn needs your real numbers. 3 things, at the kitchen table. Write down your 3 buckets and what is in each, taxable, tax-deferred, and Roth. Most people have never once seen the 3 totals side by side, and the picture alone tells you a lot. Estimate your taxable income for this year and find the top of your current bracket. The gap between the two is your low bracket room, the space fill the bracket is trying to use. Then, before you act, take those 3 numbers to a fee-only advisor or a tax pro for one focused conversation about sequencing and Roth conversions. It is one of the few times a single meeting can pay for itself many times over. You will spend decades deciding what to invest in. Almost no one plans the order they spend it in, and that order is worth more than most of the investing. 3 buckets, taxed on the gains, taxed on everything, taxed on nothing. The easy answer is taxable first and Roth last, and it will not ruin you. But the money answer, for most people with a real 401k, is to fill your low bracket in the quiet years before 73, shrink the tax bomb on purpose, and line it all up with when your Social Security starts. Same money, same life. A very different tax bill, decided by nothing but the order. Run your numbers. Know you are on track.